Thank you very much, Maro. Okay, I'm going to go through very quickly what has been quite a long and complex process. So effectively, I'm just skimming over the top. I'd be very happy to answer questions after the session at the cocktail party or anywhere else. Overview. First of all, I'll deal with some key strategic GI-related challenges, and I'll place Myplan.ie in that context. Secondly, I'll set the Irish planning context, mainly planning context for Myplan. I'll look at the process which has been used to develop and to get us to the point where we are at the moment. Then I'll briefly describe Myplan, what it does, and what some of the impact has been to date. What's next? Where are we going? Because quite honestly for us, Myplan is the first little baby step in a big, long process that's going to expand quite a lot in Ireland. And finally, where on earth is Inspire in all of this? So turning to the first main area, which is the key strategic GI challenges. Now, I believe that these are broader than just anything to do with Myplan, but the first one there is how to derive greater benefits from existing GI data and existing GI tech and related technologies. That's a position where I think certainly we are in Ireland when I think of the extent to which we are realizing the opportunities of the data that we've already got. Now, I can't give any kind of accurate percentage, but for me, the percentage would probably be hovering around 1%, 2%. There's an enormous potential sitting out there just in the data that we've got with the existing technologies. We're not even touching the surface with using it properly. Myplan can be seen, quite honestly, as an example within this broad framework of trying to use existing technologies and existing data. The second major challenge which I think faces all of us in the GI and related sector is the emerging future. How to exploit the opportunities arising from new technologies and trends. I say new technologies, but actually quite a lot of them are here already. But and in particular, the way in which these new trends are going to interact and mingle between each of them. Where on earth is it all going? What are the opportunities there? How do we exploit them? I've listed there some of the new, in inverted commas, trends. As you could see, many of them not quite new, but what we believe is that there's a very different GI landscape coming fast down the track. If you just take, for example, one of them, the Internet of Things, I think already in Europe there's probably over 1 billion sensors which are recording different things and to greater or lesser extent are transmitting information. How on earth are those all going to link up? We will have motor cars talking to the road, motor cars talking to kettles in your home. All sorts of new things are coming very quickly down the track. I won't go into it. So the challenge for us in Myplan would be how do we exploit these new trends at some point in the future, but we still have to get over using the current data that we've got more effectively and efficiently. The Irish context for Myplan.ie. First of all, I'll mention the planning system. We've got 4 levels of planning: national, and there's a thing called the National Spatial Strategy. I work in that space. The national planning space. We've also have regional planning guidelines. We've got 8 regions in Ireland. We then, at the next level down, we have city and county plans. We've got 34 of them. And then we've got a lot of local area plans. My actual day job is I've got responsibility for 10 counties, and dealing with all the kind of planning matters from a national perspective with those 10 counties. We've got overall approximately 400 development and local area plans. Now, until Myplan, there's no single place where you could find zoning or other planning information about all these 400 plans. They're operating in isolation from each other. There's no harmonization of zoning or other features, and thus there's an inability to make any kind of comparison between plans, even if they're sitting bang right up against each other. The second context issue that I'd like to just briefly deal with is effectively the crisis that we're in Ireland. And it's a product of what happened in what we call the Celtic Tiger years. The Celtic Tiger is when Ireland went absolutely mad. We were developing at extraordinarily high growth rates. Development was happening everywhere. Zoning was going on all over the place. Much of that zoning was extremely poorly located land. And excessive amounts of housing, hotel shopping, etc., development, which effectively we've got quite a number of vacant housing estates. We've got hotels that are closed down. All sorts of things are going on now that the crash has hit us. The current financial crisis is in fact a major opportunity for Ireland. It sounds very odd, and I'm not advocating big financial crashes to any country at all. It's absolutely horrible, but it does create opportunities, and we in the planning sphere are attempting to exploit those opportunities, and it sets a context for Myplan. The process of developing Myplan to date, you could see there 2008, 2009, we started feeling a need for getting our act together, as it were. 2009, we sharpened the concept and we undertook a very small pilot study. And 2010, networking, building support, using the pilot, finding money, no real development opportunity. The next slide will deal in little bit more detail with that year, 2010, because it was an extremely important year. 2011, it's go. We started building Myplan. Technically, we started getting the data in, harmonizing, etc. And in April this year, just under 3 months ago, our minister launched Myplan. The process, 2010, I thought I'd just deal very briefly with that because it was a whole year where effectively we did nothing other than network, talk. If you're trying to measure concrete progress, you would say we got 0 out of 10. But in fact, it was an extremely crucial period for us because what we were doing is we were clarifying the problems which existed. We were showing the potentials without over-promising, and there's a very delicate balancing act that you have to go through. You've got to raise expectations, but not so far that you overextend the expectations and you go crashing down when you can't quite deliver. But essentially we were trying to show that we can do more with less and we can do things smarter. Now in Ireland, because of the financial crisis, there's an extremely big drive because we've got less resources, they're being cut everywhere. There's an extremely big drive to save money, to do things more efficiently, to do more with less. And we used the pilot study, the little old pilot study that we did, to help us show, in particular, high-level decision makers who are non-technical people, to show them what the potential was in what we were talking about, the vision that we had. So finally, just a point there, getting or having money is absolutely crucial. It's not an easy job when your country is in a deep financial crisis, but we managed to do it. So we moved on in 2011 with a little bit of money, and we started actually concretely doing things. Myplan, the main aim is to provide a free internet-based comprehensive national planning, Irish planning information service. I've identified here 3 main parts. There's what I might call the front end, which is what the user sees when they interact with Myplan. And that's got 2 components, just ordinary old web pages, which we all know about, and a geo browser. There's a back end, which I'm not not going to deal with this in this presentation. I'm not a technical guy. I come from the user community, so I'd be treading on thin ice if I were to go there too much. And then the third part is what I call the soft infrastructure, and I'll briefly mention what that is. The front end, the standard web pages, there's a home page, and on the home page we have a disclaimer, and essentially the disclaimer says our department takes no responsibility for anything. So, sorry, that's cutting it a bit short, but that's essentially what it says. We've got a news item where local authorities and other organizations can put news. We've got a documents or links section, and here there's quite a lot of potential which we haven't tapped yet. There's a lot of potential to provide all sorts of text document, Excel spreadsheets, links all over the place, to provide the sort of textual information side of the whole planning regarding Irish planning. There's help and frequently asked questions. One of the FAQs in there is we say actually how much up until the 4th of April this year it has cost us in cash that we've had to push out to get to where we were by the time we launched. Just an interesting point in that regard is of the amount of cash that we pushed out, possibly 70% was actually related to data harmonization and data cleaning. It wasn't actually system development in any way. We found huge problems with data and clearing up the data. We have a comment section where if anybody's got any comments, they can put their comments in. They position on a map where they're talking about, and the comments get a tracking number, and within a day we respond within a day to those comments. We've then got a contact section. This is just a very example of the web side of things, the front end, the home page. Very, very ordinary kind of website there, nothing special at all. The web browser. Now, in the web browser, there's all the data that comes through which you can interact with, but there's a number of tools, and I'll very briefly run through them. A data layers tool, which is, we all know about that. You switch layers on and off. That's fine. Find an address tool. You type in an address, 23 Hillcrest, Kilcullen, and it searches through about 2.3 million address points, and it zooms straight into where the address is. Find an area tool. Some people might be interested in finding a particular census enumeration area, a townland, a town, a county, whatever it is. You could type those in and it jumps to where that is. We've linked in with Google Street View, so you can seamlessly jump into Google Street View and you could see where you are from the road, as it were. We have a drawing and measuring tool, which is fairly flexible. We have a reporting tool, which here, for example, is quite interesting. What that would enable a person to do is the user would define an area, and you would be able to find out how many dwellings, how many businesses, and how many buildings of mixed dwelling and business there are in that particular area that you've decided to draw. Very useful for spatial planners. You can also find out in the zones, the different land use zones which might be in the town, how many of the different kinds of residences and businesses and so on that you get there. So that's quite a very useful tool for planners. Data extract, that just lets you download the zoning data which we have collected. Bookmark, print, help, and there's a transparency tool which enables you to have two layers open at once, and you fade the top layer over and you can see what's going on underneath. There's also the reference mapping. We've got 5 reference maps, one of which is actually ortho imagery, and 3 of them are historical mapping. The current data layers, there's the reference mapping I was talking about. We've got statutory zoning. In all those 400 plans, there's an adopted These are adopted plans, they're legal documents, and they've got zoning in. You can have housing here, industry there, open space there. That's the statutory zoning. But what we found is that there was absolutely no ability to compare, even between plans right next door to each other, in terms of the zoning, because there were just so many kinds of zones. Each authority had its own idea as to what it wanted in zoning terms. So we generated something which we call generalized zone types, or GZT. I'll come back to that in a moment. We put residential density, so you could see what the plans are saying, what the density should be, say 50 to 70 dwellings to the hectare, that kind of stuff. Phasing, you might have your land zoned for residential, but in fact, in Ireland, as a result of the crisis which we've been in and the over-zoning, we've actually had to introduce a scheme which says this land can be developed first, second, third. So effectively, if you're in category 3, you might be zoned for residential, but it means virtually nothing because we're never ever going to get around to using that particular land for residential. So we've had to introduce a phasing component. Unfinished housing estates, we've got lots and lots of those because of the collapse of the economy, and those are all positioned, and a whole lot of details are provided about them. You could see the other kind of stuff there. I won't go through all of that because I need to get through the presentation, but there's quite an interesting set of data sets sitting there, interesting for planners and others. This is just an example of what the browser would look like, and it's showing you there, in this case, the statutory zoning. I won't go into too much because what I'd suggest is if anybody is actually interested, you go on the internet, you type in Myplan.ie, and then you can have a look at it all yourself. But that's an example of the zoning. In the case of each zone, I would just mention on the top right, the little black box on the top right-hand side there, you click on a zone, and the little box comes up, and it tells you the name of the zone, the objective of the zone, a few other details, and it gives you a hyperlink straight into the local authority's plan or website where you would see the plan, so you can jump straight through and see the details of what's actually going on behind that zone. We have in the case of each zone, there's often sets of information. You can switch them on and off. This happens to be a census, 2011 census, and the different colors there are colors you can switch on and off, so you could just see where are the high growth areas, where are the low growth areas, etc. This is the GZT layer. It took us quite an effort to be able to produce this particular layer where the hundreds and hundreds of different types of zones which you get in all the 400 statutory plans are reduced to a subset, a much, much smaller subset of zones. So you can now put plans next to each other or in a particular area, and you can actually see the same color is residential, the same color is industrial across all these different plans. So that's effectively what I've just been telling you, so I'll jump over that one. The find an address tool, this is just an example, I'll go very quickly. The street view you could see there, you jump into street view, you can actually make the street view fill the whole screen. Just click on a little part of the street view there, very useful. Find an area tool, identify tool. This particular one, it tells you which particular data sets on any point where the user is clicking, what data sets are live in relation to that particular point. The draw tool, there's a lot of flexibility in this draw tool. We think it's quite powerful and useful. It doesn't just measure distances. You could put text on top of it. You can measure areas. There's a range of different things. The reporting tool, this is the one where I was talking about where the user draws an area and you can, for example, find out how many houses are in that area, businesses and mixed houses and businesses. A table comes up like the lower one in black there. You can export that to an Excel spreadsheet, so you can use it in your own system. I mentioned when I was giving starting the presentation or earlier in the presentation, that the soft support infrastructure is actually very important. Now, I haven't got time to go through all of these, but we think that, in fact, the biggest achievement that we've got is not actually what you see if you click on Myplan on the internet. It's what we've done in the background. And going right to the bottom line there, we've changed mindsets. We've changed the way people look at data in a planning arena. And that's not easy. That is difficult, I can tell you, to do. That's just one of the achievements. But it's the soft infrastructure which enables sustainability to go through into the future. We've put in place a whole lot of soft things which we can draw on to keep the whole show on the road. The impact to date, we're getting at the moment about 300 to 800 visits a day. 70 to 80% of them are repeat visits, so people are finding it useful. Now, in little old Ireland, that number of visits a day and that amount of repeating is actually we think, quite a significant achievement. We've got lots of anecdotal user feedback, and it's overwhelmingly positive to what we've done. And going back to the saving money, saving time, doing things smarter, that in essence is the feedback that we are getting. People in the professions, in government, local government, and so on, and from the public are all saying the same kind of thing. So what's next? We are looking at building, I'll be coming near the end. We're looking at substantially increasing and building on the platform that we've got. I mentioned at the beginning that Myplan at the moment is just like a first toe in the water, but we want to actually go swimming. And so during this year and into next year, we will be expanding considerably the number of data sets and the kind of tools which will be useful to people in the planning arena. But not only that, we would see the Myplan.ie being the basis for the development of a similar kind of thing in other areas. Our Secretary General in our department wants us to see whether this can be leveraged to see whether foreign direct investment can be facilitated coming into Ireland. So there's a lot going on there. Also, I don't have time to talk about it, but Myplan is becoming embedded in the whole public sector reform process, which is going on in a quite substantial way in Ireland, and we've got it built in there. Then the last one here is we need to keep an eye on those emerging trends and adapt Myplan as it evolves next year, the year after that, to pick up some of the opportunities that are sitting there. Where is Inspire in all of this? Well, it's not driven by Inspire at all. It's driven actually by a business case within planning. However, those of us who know a little bit about Inspire, we've kept Inspire in the back of our minds. And what we're doing here is we're building beyond Inspire. There's only one original data set that we're looking at here, which is actually going to go straight into Inspire, and that is the GZT, the Generalized Zone Types. So Inspire is hovering there in the background. It will become very useful, we believe, in the future as other harmonized data sets come into play and we pull them into Myplan. But for the moment, it hasn't been a big driver. So that's about it, folks. Please have a look at www.myplan.ie and give us feedback through the comments section. We will, so far anyway, we've been able to respond within a day to any comments that have been coming in. Thanks very much.